Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I'm going to be showing you how this book, The Shortest History of England by James Hawes, helped inspire my warband to use with this book, Mordheim. So let's jump into it. I think it's really interesting how little ideas get stuck in our mind and stay there and ultimately, fruition it into models or an idea or an army or something like that. Obviously, there's so many ideas that also fall by the wayside, but one idea that stuck for me was found in this book. And it was this passage here about Clubmen. England itself was something like a failed state. Men across the rural southwest formed local militias of clubmen to defend against both sides. Clubmen was an expression used at several points during the English Cival Wars to describe groups of untrained, unofficial local militia. These group of clubmen started to appear in the Welsh border counties and then blossomed and took root in the southwest in Wiltshire, Dorset, Gloucestershire, Somerset and Devon. They are motivated by the constant passage of marching armies from 1642 to 1646. And the multiple garrisons that tried to tax, control and plunder the local countryside in their wake. The Clubmen movement organised to regulate the actions of armies and garrisons on their patch. For example, in Somerset and Devon, they worked with opposing garrisons. On the one hand, they refused to pay the extra excise and levies demanded of them, and called out armed men to stop plundering raids and military forced impressment. In return, they agreed to pay a regular monthly tax, and even got opposing garrisons together for a friendly pint or free. As someone from Somerset myself, reading this really started to get my imagination going. I started to kind of think about the Wurzels almost as a local militia group, just big cider drinkers. Some of these more modern common Somerset tropes with mixed in with this history. And in the next part of this video, I'm going to try and explain how this kind of developed into a story and a narrative I was building for my warband. We've spoken a lot about inspiration, but how do we go from actually turning inspiration into a warband? When I was kind of puzzling this question, I first looked at the Empire State Troops kit or something like that. I knew I wanted to do like an Averlander human warband, and that was about 50 quid, I think, from Games Workshop. And the problem I kind of had with this was that all my guys were going to look very similar, and I wanted lots of variation in the warband. I wanted to treat everyone like their own individual character. I knew I wanted to go for Averlanders because they have halflings and I wanted to incorporate some of them into the warband. And so what I ended up doing was going on eBay and finding a Frostgrave job lot, and I really, really recommend doing this because Frostgrave just have so many great sprues, which is super easy to kit bash together. And someone just had a job lot of their knights, their wizards, dwarves, some skeletons, werewolfy kind of guys, and loads of great different bits. And it cost me about £25 just for a real nice variety. I also picked up some War Games Atlantic, I believe, halflings. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll do some close-ups in a sec. I got a sprue of them for like £5 on eBay. I also got some some Perry Miniatures historicals. There's some bits of there maybe, and then also on a lot of them, as you'll see, like on this guy, I also got these backpacks from Turnip 28, some 3D printed Turnip 28 bits, and they've all got kind of backpacks. Some of them have got some vegetables on and hanging off them as well, and it really gives this feeling of this traveling farmer vibe that I wanted to go for. The final piece I think with some interesting bits is this young blood here, and he just has some wood elf kind of bits, I believe, and then Frostgrave stuff. But yeah, the kit bashing I didn't actually record because, again, as I said, I had this idea originally in April, and I think I kit bashed these guys maybe in the summer, did their bases at the end of the summer. So it's kind of been a long, slow project, slowly working towards a warband competition that Averlander Miniatures, Dietz, is hosting in his Discord, his Patreon Discord. If you haven't seen Dietz's channel, then please check it out because it is it's just one of my favourites, and it kind of got me back into the hobby really, all the old Warhammer stuff. So I definitely recommend checking it out. But I think that's enough waffling. I think we actually need to get into some painting and get into some hobby, and then I'll explain a little bit more about the story and ideas behind the models afterwards. The colour scheme I chose for this army was a mix of yellows, reds, greens and browns. This is really to reflect kind of apples and cider and stuff like that, and also some of the colours from the Somerset flag and things like that as well. It was a really great colour scheme actually, and what I really loved was having a limited palette and mixing colours across all the different miniatures. One way this was really apparent was doing these stripes here and using this grey-green tone as the base colour for underneath both of the stripes, the white ones and the green ones. It really just blends them together, and it makes it seem like they're still all on the same cloth and mini. It's kind of really hard to describe. I haven't really tried this technique before, but actually limiting my palette made all the mini just like look more cohesive and together, I think. And I used a lot of the different colours to mix up different brown tones and things like that. So really everything came from, it wasn't too limited a palette, but a fairly limited palette. I painted each mini on its own individually. I didn't do any batch painting and just took my time with each one, trying to think of the character and the story this mini is telling, or who they were and what they would wear, and I changed up little bits of each mini, different stripes and different patterns on different places, and I think it gives them all a really unique character. I also tried to add quite a lot of texture in my painting, lots of like scratches and lines and details like that as well, to make them really feel like real living people. And I hadn't really tried this kind of technique and approach before, and I'm really, really happy with how these turned out. It's probably some of the most fun I've ever had painting, and yeah, I'm just super happy with the finished results. And I do think each mini does have its own character, which is what I kind of set out to do. And yeah, I really just enjoyed the process of painting these individuals and bringing them to life. They were a lot of fun, especially after a lot of the batch painting I'd done recently. It was really nice just to really focus on one model for a good few hours. So I wanted to finish this episode just by sharing some of the made-up lore I've made for these guys. I kind of made up this town, Summershire, to write them into the Warhammer universe and kind of have my own bit of a story there. Summershire is a small farming town that lies along the Blue Reach in the plains of Averland, not far from the Moot. Famous for its cider and village feasts, the village is often filled with drinking, eating and merriment. This was until the summer of the year 1999. A great comet in the sky was believed by many to be a giant apple burning through the sky, an omen of the harvest to come. But no harvest ever came that year. The village was pillaged and destroyed by a band of chaos warriors who tore their way across the empire on their way to a place called Mordheim. From the rubble of the town, only 12 emerged. With their town, fields, friends and families gone, their only choice was to move. They packed their bags of anything left they could find, and they left in pursuit of the Chaos Warriors. They had heard about Mordheim, and it promised riches and a chance at revenge. So I've actually wrote a lot more lore for these guys, but a little bit too much to share in this video, I think. But more, I think the lore was just super helpful for me to pad out backstory for these guys. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, then I'm kind of writing a bit more about each character, because there's families in here and fathers and daughters and friends and all this kind of stuff. So I'm explaining that over on my Instagram in a little bit more detail. And I think that really helped me connect with these guys. I've been really inspired by the Folkhammer movement recently, and reading about people who are creating these stories about the ordinary people in Warhammer. And this was kind of my way of doing that, exploring a small village and community, and really writing these stories about individual characters, giving them names and backstories and relations and things. And I found that really helped me connect with these models. And in Mordheim, I was actually getting upset. Well, not upset, but I was being more cautious of how I was playing, because I didn't want to send them in just to get trampled by some big chaos knight or something like that. But obviously, the spirit of Mordheim is still just to send things in and fire out. But I just found it funny how I was connecting with these miniatures, and it definitely all comes through the storytelling and the time I spent painting them. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed hearing a little bit more about them and my thoughts. So guys, I hope you don't mind, but I actually went and painted the last member of the Warband. the last member of the warband here off camera. I started a new job this week, so I didn't have too much time to record and stuff. And sometimes I find that when you're filming stuff, things just take a little bit longer and stuff like that. So in the mornings before work, I was just chipping away at him, like 20 minutes here, after work, maybe 20 minutes sort of thing. And it was actually a super fun way to paint. I think I've really felt this with all this warband. I've been painting them over the last couple of months, and I've been really spending a lot of time on each one, giving them unique clothing or the items on them, really paying attention to them, and I really think it shows in the paint job. These are definitely the most characterful paint jobs I've ever done, and I just absolutely love the whole warband as a whole. I'm really, really happy with how they came out. I actually think they're probably some of my favourite models I've painted so far, but I really think the reason because of that is because of Mordheim and the kind of story and narrative and character building that infuses. I've absolutely loved making these, and we're so far 2 games into our Mordheim campaign, and there's already just so much story coming out of it. And in the next video I'm going to be adding a member to my warband and talking about a little bit more about the games I've been playing in the narrative as well. I really think this just reminded me of how fun painting can be when you just slow things down and paint just for the sake of painting and really enjoy it and take your time. Obviously I did the army project to kind of catch up in the last video, and that also has a time and a place. You have to get things done sometimes, but this, just the joy of painting and sitting down and just enjoying one character or one person is brilliant. And I think that's the beauty of skirmish games and things like that, and something I really want to explore more on the channel in the future. But yeah, I think really now I'm just going to share some more shots of the army and stuff like that. And I just want to say thanks very much for watching. Thanks for all the support on my last video. That did really, really, really well. So thanks to anyone who watched that, and thanks to you if you're still watching to the end here. We've got more time coming on the channel soon. Hopefully maybe a couple of videos before Christmas. That's my goal, definitely one. But yeah, just thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone who newly subscribed. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video as well. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys. Bye.